Grimmfest.
Welcome to Saturday afternoon at Grimmfest. I have the director, Tim, with me, ahead of the world premiere of Driftless. Tim, please, no one can intro the film better than you. Tell me everything.
Yeah, so Alan, the Driftless is a collection of Midwestern horror stories that I wrote and directed. The inception of this anthology dates back to the pandemic, right? A lot of us creatives, when we were, forced to stay at home, my day job is commercial and corporate stuff, so that slowed down too. I just, started writing. Like, that's one thing I can do at my house. That's one thing I can think about when I'm out on a jog, when I'm just sitting around. You can just think of ideas. They don't cost anything. So I started writing, and I came up with a lot of interesting different stories that were kind of inspired by where I'm from, which is the Driftless region, which is why the film is called the Driftless region. And, you write from what you know, right? So I thought, like, none of these ideas necessarily warranted me fleshing them out to a full feature. I just got done with doing a horror comedy, and then before that, a sci-fi drama. Those are my first two feature films, and I knew I wanted to stick in the horror realm, but I wanted to do something a little bit more serious. And all these stories that I was kind of churning out, I ended up writing around, I think 8 to 9 different short scripts. We ended up choosing the 3 main ones, and then the thread story to bind them all together. So it was just a function or a symptom of the pandemic. And also, anyone who's done a feature film knows that, especially an indie feature film, it takes so much of your life, right? You're dedicating 4, maybe 5 years to it, from first putting pen to paper to then, we're fundraising, and then doing the production, post-production, then the rollout, and then trying to find distribution, and then the rollout of the distribution. So it's a lot. It's a lot to focus. And again, my second feature film was a horror comedy about a mutated killer priest that's trying to wipe out heavy metal music. So that was called Death's Metal. That was a lot of time to spend on that concept. I was already burnt out, by the time we showed it for the first time, right? So it was fun to, and again, I love the anthology format. Love movies like Trick or Treat and Creep Show and Tales from the Dark Side, all these movies. I loved Tales from the Crypt. It's just fun to be on to the next story. If you don't like this one, on to the next story kind of a thing. And there was always something for me in these more modernly, the VHS series. Love that series. So beyond that, I was like, this could be an interesting way to solve the funding issue, right? So my first 2 features were crowdfunded via Kickstarter back in 2010, which was Kickstarter's first or second year. And then Indiegogo on kind of a flexible funding thing. That and some small investments and from friends, family, and that kind of stuff. That was fine, but we only ever raised, anywhere from, 25,000 to 100,000. And 100,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. It's not to make one of these movies, especially when you have an army of crew and a big cast. And, I'm at the age, I'm pushing 40 where I can't just call in favors, right? Everybody's time is valuable to me. I wouldn't work for free, so I can't ask these people to work for free. Even the young bucks, coming out of college and stuff, I want to see them get something, right? You just get a better team that way. So I was like, I don't want to crowdfund again. I've already pumped that well twice. This anthology, thing, I think, if I could spread the financial burden out across a number of years, then maybe I could just pull some of the profits from my corporate and commercial business, which I had just bought at the time outright. And, instead of being fiscally responsible and saving that money, putting it into a stupid passion project, right? And gambling on it, okay? So that's what I did. And we shot the first short, Pop-A-Bait, in September of 2021, and just to see if it could work. Right, if it's too much, or it costs too much, or the movie sucks, then just pull the plug and it's just a short film, no big deal. Well, we finished it, and I really liked it. I was really proud of it, and it had a very interesting mood to it. It was kind of a folklore slasher kind of a thing. And well, then I started just brainstorming, and I had some really good years in 2022 and 2023 financially. And I was like, what would be best to pair these all together? So I started to figure out the whole story, right? Like what were going to be the other sub stories and what was going to be the thread story. And I just kind of mapped it out. We shot Booze in October of 2022. And then we shot The Pool Keeper in February of 2024. And we shot the thread story last in July of 2024. All the while getting married, having a kid, doing all these other big life things, which is perfect for when people see the movie, because a lot of those things I was going through are kind of inadvertently injected in some of those stories, because a lot of those things were on my mind, like commitment and legacy and addiction, and a lot of those things are on my mind through that time period. So it worked. It was crazy. It worked. We got the film finally out the door through a grant from the state of Iowa. The whole film was filmed in the Driftless region, on the southern point of the Driftless region in eastern Iowa, kind of where there's like a sliver of Iowa that's right on the Mississippi there, kind of where Wisconsin and Illinois converge in the United States Midwest. So that last grant pushed us through the door. We got that grant last August, and we finished the film pretty quickly after that, because one of the benefits of having most of the footage in the can when we shot the thread story is like we had a pretty good rough cut like 2 weeks after we shot the thread story, because for the most part Pool Keeper, Booze, and Pop Bay were already shot. So it's a weird way to kind of go about making a movie, but I can't be the first person to do this, because it just makes so much sense, right? To be able to spread, the financial burden of making a feature film, because I think the all-in cost of the movie ended up being, including the grant and whatnot, like about $250,000. So for one person to do that, I can't. That's like a house, right? I can't drop that in 1 year. My wife would kill me. So, but yeah, hey, here we are, world premiere, talking about my home in Manchester, UK, of all places. Like it's the perfect place to do the premiere, in my opinion, because one of the reasons I stayed in Iowa to make movies is it's always been my muse. I lived in Chicago for a number of years and had dreams of moving to New York or LA, and visited LA, and I had friends out there and stuff, and it just like always made sense to me that like, well, I like, right from what and I know so much about this place, and I know so many people, and there's so much infrastructure when you know so many people, and it's just like, this is just going to make things easier. And I think, having come up in the time where film cameras got phased out and digital cameras became the norm, like my first feature was right when the Red One came out. I made the right choice, because filmmaking in general has become so much easier for everybody, right? There's so many different ways to tell your story now. I mean, people are shooting on their iPhones and all this kind of stuff. So, the idea that you have to be in LA in the States to make a film, or have to be in a big city to make a film, just doesn't even make sense anymore. So, yeah, it's awesome. I mean, people in the States don't even know what the hell the Driftless region is. You know what I mean? Everyone thinks of the Midwest as just this flat, cows, pigs, corn, like that sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of that.
I mean, people think of the emo as well.
Yeah. But no, the whole Driftless region, which extends into the southeastern portion of Iowa, up through Wisconsin and Minnesota, it's called the Driftless region because there's no glaciation there. Basically, is free of glacial drift, and what that means is that whole region and they don't quite understand why it didn't get hit by the glaciers during the Ice Age, but it didn't. So that whole region is essentially how the Midwest looked prior to the glaciers, right? So in that like kernel of the region's story, kind of again also kind of inspired like that's how we're going to frame the anthology, is like, well, if this is how the primal Midwest looks, like what lurks in the primal Midwest,
What survived?
Right? Yeah, what survived from pre-Ice Age, right? So yeah.
Cool, awesome. We tend to do these kind of media wall Q&A things for horror fans that hit our website or our YouTube, or like people who are here and want a little bit more context, or people who aren't here and have seen your film online. But I think you've got some really interesting things to say about film production.
Yep.
Would you mind if we just talk about that?
About film production in general?
So specifically, let's start off with Kickstarter and crowdfunding films. One of the difficulties with crowdfunding films is people go to those platforms expecting like a tier thing, and like there's things that you can give them, like, or maybe a set or like a credit, and I think that's somewhat, a spot on set or a credit for like executive producer, that's maybe a little bit unethical, and that's not a real production credit.
Yeah.
And like no one really wants a million t-shirts. So what kind of things do you offer with your Kickstarters in order to, and I hate this phrase, encourage engagement that isn't just something that's disposable?
Yeah, so there's a reason why I didn't. Can I swear?
Absolutely.
I didn't fuck with the crowdfunding the third time around, right? Is because, I did it in 2010 when it was really early, and then I did it again in 2016 when we were crowdfunding for Death to Metal, and the Death to Metal campaign was more successful, I think, because there's just a more built-in audience with horror. And my first feature wasn't a horror film. That was all like crowdfunded by locals, right? And so many people get burnt by crowdfunding, like not getting their Blu-rays or DVDs or not getting the stuff. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall after we did it to Death to Metal, and we sent out all the stuff. Like I never promised anything that I didn't already have like on deck. Whether it was like a 8x10 poster or the digital download, a seat at the private screening, the first private screening, like all those things. So I think the biggest challenge with crowdfunding is the people who are the most successful are already names. And people who don't have a name don't really have a good shot. And again, unless they have a very wealthy friends and family group, right? So we only ever raised the first Kickstarter campaign it was a movie called Black Web, was $16,000, which coming fresh out of college was a dream come true. But like nowadays, like I have commercial budgets that are like 10 times that for a 30-second spot. It's crazy. Yeah. And I still like look at it and I still am like, this is crazy. And then I think we raised like $25,000 for Death to Metal, which probably, fast forwarding 6 years is probably pretty comparable to what we raised first. So it's tough. I don't know if I really have a good answer to that, because we made it work, but I wouldn't necessarily call those early crowdfunding campaigns successful. And I think that's why when it came down to doing the Driftless, I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to figure out a way to do this myself so that I'm not beholden to anyone, whether it be a crowd of people who want a digital download or, my friend's buddy's dad or the actor's dad who, kicked in $2,500 hoping that there would be a return when, it's like, no, dude, this is a tax write-off probably for you, because filmmaking is the worst. Other than like buying like a lotto tickets or something like that, it's one of the worst investments you can make, right? A lot of us at the indie level are really doing this for this, right?
But I think there's the distinction, right, between a writer-director who's in control of thing and knows they're not going to see their money. Mm-hmm. But if you're a skilled member of crew, you may drop your rate, but you've still got a rate.
You mean, can you rephrase that, I guess?
So sorry, if you're a director, a writer, producer, whatever, you're putting money into the project to potentially see an outcome. Sure. And you're probably not. But if you're a member of crew, so a DOP, camera operator, boom operator, whatever, like you're going to do it for a rate, even if that's not a professional rate.
And I'm very passionate about making sure that everybody gets their worth, right? on the Driftless, I don't think anyone didn't get paid in some respect with actual money. Like I didn't, there was no like you can be in the film for your reel. I think the only people that maybe didn't get paid in actual money were extras. So other than me, I didn't pay myself. It'd be great to get some money back from this, but I'll be straight with you. Like if I get, whatever I get back from this, I hope I get something back from it. I want to put it in the next project, right? Like that's the goal for me. That's always been the goal is the next one, right? So it's tough that as filmmakers we decided to choose the art that is absolutely the most expensive to produce. Utilizes the most resources of people and all this stuff, but it's a miracle when it works out, and it's a miracle when you get it done, and it's a miracle when you can fly from Iowa to the UK and premiere to a huge audience of horror fans and aficionados. Like that's almost worth it to me. If I don't even see a penny, it's like, again, being here for stuff like this and being able to share my muse and these stories that mean a lot to me with other people in the world. And then, that's absolutely what it's about.
Is that perhaps the answer then? Like you're creating an artistic endeavor and your experience of that should be your reward. If there's also financial recompense out of it, that's a bonus.
Yeah. I mean, so each of these feature films have solved the question. So the first feature film that I made, I was like, can we make a feature film? Fresh out of film school, all my instructors like drilled it into my head, like you have to make a feature in order for anyone to take you seriously. Had done a number of shorts up to that point, but you gotta make a feature. So that's what we did. After that, we had our world premiere at Seattle International and then Fantasia. And then after that, it got picked up for distribution, had a nice little release. We made a little money on it. And then it just kind of like fell into obscurity. So then the second question I wanted to answer with the next feature was, well, how do we get people to watch it like consistently? Like how can we extend a film's shelf life? So, and a lot of these are questions framed from my producer brain, right? And so I was like, well, I've always loved horror comedies, and I always had this idea for Death to Metal kind of in the back of my head because I was big in the metal scene back home in the Midwest and was in some bands in high school and college, and I was plugged in with a lot of those bands and people, so leveraged that kind of knowledge and again that infrastructure against that. And yeah, we didn't have a splashier world premiere or international premiere. And this is like right about when the pandemic hit. It was like December of 2019. We went to Spooky Empire, which was like a horror con where we had a world premiere, and then we actually came over here to the UK and had our international premiere at shout out Mitch at Soho Horror in London, and we had a great time over there. He puts on a great little festival. But then after that, we got a distribution deal, and to this day, people are reviewing the film on Letterboxd. We made a little bit of money again, nothing to write home about. But again, like I just saw like last week, I checked Letterboxd and there was like 5 new reviews up since I had last checked it like a month ago, and those are people writing the reviews, so you got to assume there's probably a bigger percentage of people not writing reviews, and they're still watching it, right, and still finding it. So we kind of answered that question, right? With the Driftless, I was like, how do we make a feature like Exactivision? Because we have been handicapped through and through by the budget limitations on the first projects, like so much so that we couldn't have a professional color grade or sound mix or professional composer. And I really just wanted to see a vision through front to back and not like see the movie and be like, oh, I wish we could have done this with, we didn't have the, and I can say we did it. Will the results on screen, resonate with the audience? We'll see tonight. So, but I'm confident that I answered that question, and I'm confident in these stories, and we'll see how the reviews are.
Thank you. The short to feature is the big jump, right? As a filmmaker. And it sounds a little bit like you found a shortcut by making several shorts and creating an anthology out of that.
Yeah.
What did you find were the things that you could do siloed, like this short, which will be part of a feature, is done and I don't need to touch it again? And which things did you find that you had to leave until the end?
Yeah, I mean, the siloed component of it that I really enjoyed was being able to work with so many talented actors. There's a huge cast just inherently in the fact that it's 4 different stories woven together, right? So that was just an amazing experience for me because I feel like I'm an actor as director. It's like when I'm like on set, you have different kind of directors where they're like always behind the lens and worried more about the shot or lighting or whatever. And I just couldn't be less interested in the technology and that kind of stuff. And I couldn't be more excited to sit down with an actor and just like go through the blocking and go through the scenes and stuff. So being able to silo the talent and being able to cast so many great actors in the film and being able to work with them was such a gift. As far as what I had to leave to the end, like obviously the only film we finished like completely until the whole movie was in the can was Papa Bay as a proof of concept, and even then we came back and regraded Papa Bay, color graded, once everything else was finished to make sure that the look was relatively cohesive. Like each movie is standalone on its look, on its lighting. It all serves the story, but at the end of the day, it does feel very, very cohesive. Like all these stories are taking place in the Driftless, and that's what we wanted, right? Same with Gregory Polzak's score, which is one of my favorite parts of the film that obviously had to wait until the last part. So does that answer your question kind of?
It does, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It sounds like you've got your head incredibly well screwed on and you've got a tactical view of what you're doing with this film and your career in general, which is amazing. I wish I had that. What's next for yourself and for the Driftless?
Yeah, so next up, this is our first stop on our festival tour circuit, whatever. So right now, as we speak, literally a half hour after we press play here in Manchester, in Erie, Pennsylvania, Erie Horror Fest, we're having our USA premiere, which obviously I can't teleport, so I'm not there, but we have a team out there in Erie, and we've won Best of Fest out there, so that's amazing. They've been sending me videos, and I've been doing the same pictures and whatnot. They were just on a podcast like this yesterday, and they were like, they know so much about the movie, so they're stoked, and they're stoked to be there. After Erie, we're going to Nightmares in the Ozarks, which I hear you're affiliated with Nightmares in the Ozarks, so that's awesome. I can't wait to go down to Eureka Springs at the end of October. October is my favorite month, so doing a little road trip and going down there. I'm sure the leaves and the Ozark Mountains are going to be incredible at that time. And Colton and his team seems like they're just have a great festival down there, and I've heard so many good things. So that's super exciting. Right after that, we're going to Buried Alive in Atlanta, which I'm very, very stoked about as well. I've heard great things about that festival. I have family in Atlanta, and I've never been. My wife's brother's down there, my brother-in-law's down there, and him and his whole family. So we're going to take our son, who's one, with us, so kind of make a family trip out of it, and then take the family to the festival while we have someone babysit their kids and our kid and that sort of thing. And I can't talk about the other festivals. Haven't announced the official selection yet. So, and then we're talking with distributor partners right now. So we're actively looking for distribution and in that next step. Like obviously, I kind of want to ride the waves of success. Hopefully from here and the other festivals. So hopefully we get good reviews and hopefully we get a little momentum cooking. And like I said before, the goal of doing each one of these isn't to get rich or go broke or anything like that. It's to make the next one. And I'm already actively writing the next feature, which isn't an anthology, but it's actually it's based on one of the stories I wrote during the pandemic that was started as a short. It's one of the few ones that I felt like this could really be fleshed out into a feature. The only thing I'll say is it's a horror movie, a serious horror movie too. Takes place during Christmas. Like that's the only thing I'll say. So it's got a Christmas twist to it. So
it's an underrepresented genre.
It is. I mean, I love them. You know,
Krampus and Anna and the Apocalypse.
Yeah. It's underrepresented. So. Yeah, I'm excited to get that one done. If I'm so lucky to make the next one, that's one thing I just never take for granted. Is each one of these is a gift, and the next one isn't guaranteed. So I try to just appreciate every moment, every podcast and every audience that I have. Maybe a final thought, and you all, if you're going to be in the screening later, I'll definitely probably say this on stage at some point because it's just like a talking point that I just like drill home to. My little homies that like ask me like, what's the toughest part about this? Like, what's some information you can give us about your experience and stuff? And I always say, like, look, a lot of people think the toughest part is fundraising, or the actual making of or post, finding the film in post, or writing it for that matter. Like, what is the hardest part? It's none of those. The hardest part is getting anybody to sit down for an hour plus and watch these crazy things you did with hundreds of people, right? And that's not guaranteed, having an audience, let alone having a theater full of enthusiastic horror fans. So that's the hardest part, is to get butts in seats and to get people to turn off their phones, pay attention, hopefully eat some popcorn and enjoy what you did, right? Because all those other things mean nothing unless someone watches it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tim.
Yeah.
Fascinating conversation.